There are a couple of different methods of fitting sector antennas to an antenna support structure. If you're using, for example, a stub mast, then you can use a simple Jubilee clip like this through the two slots on the bracket at the top and bottom of the antenna. If you require to clamp them to anything else, for example, a tower with very thin legs or triangular cross section or whatever, you'll require some other form of bracket. And this is the sort of bracket we'd normally use. The bracket is two halves with bolts connecting them. The bracket can be fitted back to back in the same direction when you've got a small support structure. If you've got a large structure, then you fit it the other way around and adjust it accordingly. Incidentally, these screws, they fit into slots. That means you don't have to fiddle around with the nuts when you're climbing at the top of a tower. Sector antennas, however, usually require some sort of tilt. That's just to say the antenna is mounted vertically, but the radiation is slightly off vertical, slightly downwards. Several methods. One method is the sector antennas that have an inbuilt electrical tilt function. Under this weatherproof seal, you'll find a locking ring which is locking in place this wheel. As you rotate the wheel, it sends a plunger up the antenna which adjusts the tilt angle on the phasing harness, and the degree of the tilt can be read here. If you need to adjust it in the future, then there is a remote electrical tilt unit, the RET, which fits on there. It's basically a remote controlled motor that adjusts this for you. When it's been adjusted to the correct tilt angle, replace the weather shield. If, however, you don't want the luxury, or you haven't got the luxury of the electrical tilt, there is the mechanical method where the whole antenna is physically leaning out away from the support structure. And that is done by means of a tilt bracket. The tilt bracket is two halves. One is a hinge bracket which fits at the bottom of the antenna, and the other half is the hinge itself at the top. The correct tilt angle is set by means of this index at the top of the antenna, and the index number is compared with this table on the back of the antenna, and that is a lookup table that gives you the index to degrees. The majority of antennas are mounted directly, they're bolted directly onto an antenna support structure, whether it be a mast or a tower. But with towers, they very often have an inward slope, which means that the antenna would not be vertical. In fact, it would give it an upward tilt, and obviously we don't want this. So what we do is we install a stub mast which is stood away from the tower. It may also be that the tower is vertical, but there is, say, a ladder or cables or something that require the antenna to be stood away from a vertical tower. Okay, let's look at our example. We have got a section of a tower which is quite obviously not vertical. In fact, there's quite a sharp angle there. That is unacceptable. So what we'll do is we'll install two brackets, and the upper bracket will be adjustable so that we can position a stub mast precisely vertical. And here is the bracket that we use. The bracket is in two sections. It could be bolted directly to a wall, but this section here is sort of adjustable. We could put it around a thin-legged mast or a tower like ours. It would accommodate quite a large leg. It can be reversed to take a really huge tower leg. The bracket will be fitted together, and these bolts would cause it to clamp and grip the pole or mast. The upper bracket is adjustable. We have the same as the lower bracket. we have the same piece that makes contact with the stub mast, but we have this extension here. We can now adjust this extension to move the top of the stub mast out a little. And it is adjustable so that we could adjust the mast perfectly vertical. Let's go and see this on our tower. Here we've installed the upper and the lower brackets. As you can see, it's the bare lower bracket, and the upper bracket with the extension pieces have all been fitted. To this we've now fitted the stub mast, and it's upon the stub mast that we'd fix the antenna. Unfortunately, it's leaning a little bit. So, let's adjust it. That is vertical, but that is only in one plane. There are two planes. This particular mast is sloping inwards on all four sides, and we've mounted this stub mast on two of those. If we have it here, for example, it's vertical, but as you can see, it's not vertical in this plane. We must adjust it in both planes, sideways and frontways. So the stub mast is now vertical, and now we can fit an ordinary antenna on this. If we did want to have a tilt, we would actually fit the antenna using this tilt bracket, where you've got a calibrated tilt angle. This would fit to the stub mast and the top part of the antenna. Although most of the antennas have got an electrical tilt facility built in with an adjustable screw at the bottom. Okay? All we have to do now is to tighten the nuts. The problem here, however, is that these are all stainless steel. And if you tighten stainless steel without lubricating them, then there's a chance that they could bind together. They could seize, which means you're never going to get them off again. So all the stainless steel threads and nuts should have a light lubrication. Okay? So now it's your turn to go out into the field and do it for yourself.